Ray didn't ask for any of this. All he wanted was a peaceful off-grid existence on a frozen penal world where the snow buried bad decisions and solitude stayed blessedly cold. But no. The universe had other plans. Specifically, two half-conscious, half-frostbitten alien women who crashed into his perimeter alarm like confused, underdressed snow bunnies. He dragged them in. What else was he supposed to do? Let them die. That would have been the easier choice. Instead, he tossed emergency blankets over their shivering forms and stuffed them with hot broth while muttering, "Don't imprint on me." They blinked up at him with wide golden eyes, already too late. The short one, Zairi, licked her cracked lips and whispered, "You are warm, male. You are acceptable." Ray narrowed his eyes. That better not be a mating declaration. The tall one, Kasari, nodded gravely. "It is. You have claimed us by rescuing us. We are yours now." Ray dropped his spoon. What kind of backwards dating app is this? Turns out their species was genetically programmed with something called thermal bond imprinting. In life or death cold exposure, the first sentient who provided sustained body heat and nourishment triggered a neurochemical cascade. In short, congratulations, you are now husband. No swipe necessary. Ray had read about imprinting in some classified xenobiology doc years ago, but he didn't know the whole life mate or perish clause. He sure as hell didn't know the bonding trigger word was husband, which Zairi kept repeating like it was a mantra. Husband. 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 Kasari was worse. She tried to strip to her undersuit mid-conversation, reasoning that bonding warmth must be shared flesh to flesh. Lady, I just saved your life. I'm not applying for joint taxes. Zairi tilted her head. You do not wish to see our fusion points? I don't even know what that means, and I already regret asking. He tried to explain that humans didn't imprint like that. That just because he hauled them out of a snowdrift didn't mean he was ready to host a honeymoon. But the aliens had other ideas. Kasari began optimizing his shack for procreative rituals. She folded his survival blankets into intricate nest shapes, calibrated the heat lamp to what she called estrus-friendly spectrum, and proudly announced the interior now met preconception comfort thresholds. Ray almost choked on his coffee. You redesigned my living room into a breeding den? Zairi touched his arm, deadpan. We assumed you preferred function over foreplay. His only working comm unit was fried, and supply drones wouldn't arrive for another month. Great. Trapped in a snowbound outpost with two alien women who thought roommate was just an archaic word for husband. Worse, the girls had barely survived a crash. Their vessel, a diplomatic courier from the Obari Pact, was sabotaged. Ray found damage consistent with pulse mine signatures. Somebody didn't want them making it. But why dump them on his corner of nowhere? They had no weapons. No memory of the final crash moments. Just bio-coded loyalty to the first male who rubbed soup into their frozen fingers. Ray couldn't decide which was more insane, the fact that they kept referring to him as our chosen breeder, or that the phrase started sounding weirdly flattering the longer he stayed snowbound with them. Every time he tried to build emotional distance, one of them popped up with another innocent-sounding but wildly suggestive remark. Kasari. Shall I oil the joints of your mating limbs? Ray. My what? Zairi. She means your knees. She noticed they creak when you squat. Also, the other thing creaks. Ray. You girls need a dictionary. Or a chaperone. Still, they weren't useless. They knew survival. Kasari skinned snow wolves with eerie precision, and Zairi could field repair a generator using nothing but melted icicle fluid and Ray's shaving kit. And after a week of blizzards, Ray realized something chilling. He didn't hate having them around. In fact, the place felt less dead. Then came the transmission. Encrypted. Shortwave. Not from a satellite, ground origin. Protocol breach detected. Genetic assets located. Recovery squad en route. Do not engage the breeder. He must remain compliant. Ray blinked. Assets? Zairi looked up from boiling soup. Did you say recovery squad? Kasari's hand dropped to a blade Ray didn't know she'd been hiding. They found us. So. Not just accidental refugees. These girls were valuable. Possibly engineered. Possibly property. Possibly bait. And Ray? He wasn't just a rescuer anymore. He was a target. Ray kept the fire going with mechanical efficiency, but his mind was far from settled. The two alien girls, Zaira and Thessa, had shed their frost-covered suits and now wore his oversized thermal shirts like tunics, lounging on his blankets as if claiming territory. Thessa nibbled on a ration bar with exaggerated interest, while Zaira poked at the heat emitter with curious fingers. Neither seemed familiar with the concept of personal space. Or subtlety. You saved our cores, Thessa said again, as if repeating it changed anything. Ray groaned. I pulled you out of the snow. That's it. Zaira blinked slowly. And that's everything, by our biology. Imprinting begins when the hypothermic threshold is crossed. Emotional fixation is hardwired. That sounds like you're a glitch away from licking my face. Is that part of the process? Thessa tilted her head. We are open to rituals. Ray choked on his drink. You two are not my problem. Zaira corrected him gently. Incorrect. According to imprint law, we're biologically tethered. We've accepted you as our... Don't say it. Ray warned. Husband. They both finished in unison, like they'd rehearsed it. He buried his face in his hands. You two don't even know what that word means. We do now. Thessa beamed. It means we share rations, warmth, and reproduction cycles. Ray froze. You mean responsibility? Zaira leaned forward, her tone matter-of-fact. Also mating compatibility. We scanned you in your sleep. Your DNA has a 97.2% success probability. You what? Thessa shrugged. You snore. We got bored. Ray stood pacing. This is insane. I'm not signing up to be some interstellar baby maker just because I know how to light a fire. But your warmth penetrated our coldest moments, Zaira offered innocently, clearly unaware of her phrasing. Ray pointed a finger. Stop using words like that. Which part? She asked. Penetrated? Or... Don't finish that sentence. Their eyes sparkled in amusement. For survivors of a deadly storm, they were dangerously playful. And unreasonably attractive in that uncanny, alien way, smooth skin, glowing irises, and voices with a purr-like undertone that made even his anger feel like foreplay. You don't understand, he muttered. You can't just bond with someone because they gave you soup. But it wasn't just soup, Zaira said softly. It was survival. And you chose us. I was the only one here. Thessa clapped. Exactly. Destiny. Ray slumped against the supply shelf, defeated by their relentless logic and impossible biology. Zaira moved closer, studying his face. Are all humans this conflicted about affection? We have boundaries. Thessa joined, kneeling beside him. Then show us yours. We're fast learners. Ray pulled a pillow between them like a shield. Boundaries. Starting now. Zaira tapped the pillow. This is a defensive structure? Ray glared. It's symbolic. Thessa reached around it, gently touching his hand. We don't want to invade, unless it's mutual. Why do all your sentences sound like a dare? They giggled in stereo. Ray stood. You two stay here. I need air. Watch for snow lurkers, Zaira called sweetly. He paused at the door. Those aren't real. They are, Thessa added. But less dangerous than a bonded mate resisting the call. He slammed the door behind him, but their laughter followed. Out in the cold, the wind bit his skin, but it was less irritating than the heat rising in his chest. He hadn't signed up for this. He just wanted quiet, solitude, and the occasional whiskey flask. Now he had two gorgeous aliens treating him like a mating lottery prize and redefining biology as pillow foreplay. Back inside, Zaira was reprogramming his stove to emit pheromones, and Tessa was translating human courtship videos. The cabin had gone from quiet survivalist haven to flirtation central in record time. Ray closed his eyes. I'm not your husband. Zyra looked up. But you are our hope. And also warm, Tessa added. And statistically fertile. I will throw snow at both of you. They only smiled wider. The worst part? A small, traitorous part of Ray was starting to enjoy the attention. Ray stumbled through the cluttered interior of his bunker as the generator hummed with uneven energy, casting intermittent shadows across the metal walls. The two sisters, Navara and Tali, had made themselves thoroughly at home, though home was apparently synonymous with chaos. Blankets were draped like ceremonial totems, alien garments hung to dry on the heating vents, and the girls had discovered coffee. Badly. They were now jittery, chatty, and disturbingly fixated on mating protocols. Ray, scrubbing frost from his face, tried to explain the concept of boundaries again, but Tali merely blinked at him, utterly serious. You said you were warm? She whispered. We are cold bonded. You warm us. Inside and out. That's not how it works, he muttered. It's a metaphor, not a bedroom invitation. Navara tilted her head. Then why did you place us in your nesting chamber? That's called a couch. I needed the bed for, look, it doesn't matter. You two need to stop treating me like I'm whatever your species' version of a honeymoon prize is. Tali perked up. Honey milk ritual? I am not involved in anything called honey milk. Their species biology, it turned out, included something called thermal imprint pairing, where near-death hypothermia triggered irreversible mate selection. Unfortunately for Ray, the only available male who dragged them out of that snowbank was now sitting in a bathrobe being told that his scent had been catalogued into their genome's mating lexicon. You're exaggerating, he said. No, Navara said solemnly. Your pheromones were recorded at peak survival point. You now activate our reproductive cycle just by walking in the room. Ray swore under his breath. So I'm a walking mating beacon. Fantastic. What made it worse was how sincere they were. These weren't women trying to manipulate him. They genuinely believed the universe had selected him as their only hope for continuity. Tali kept cooking oddly suggestive meals, asking if he liked protein spread delivery by mouth. Navara cleaned compulsively and referred to their living arrangement as trial nesting. And every time one of them stubbed a toe or felt cold, they'd demand immediate skin fusion to realign their core temperature. Translation: hugging. Lots of hugging. Sometimes while unclothed. You two need hobbies, Ray muttered, sipping lukewarm coffee. Preferably ones that don't involve using me like a hot water bottle. You are more than heat, Navara said proudly. You are symmetry. Your DNA contains stable alleles that can resist cascade corruption. We need you. Ray rubbed his face. You need therapy. He turned on the radio, hoping to clear the air, only for the emergency channel to ping. Incoming shuttle. Imperial Registry. Someone had found them. Tali leaned forward, voice suddenly quiet. They will take us. But we are yours now. Ray stared at the blinking signal. He didn't ask for this. He never wanted it. But the thought of someone dragging these two back to a lab, ripping apart the strange, messy bond they built, didn't sit right. Not after all this. Not after honey milk and couch nests and semi-naked tea ceremonies. I'm not your husband, he said quietly. But we feel married, Navara replied. Ray looked toward the door. It was going to get worse before it got better. But somehow, he'd gotten used to being needed. And part of him didn't hate it. Ray didn't sleep that night. The emergency signal repeated every half hour, getting stronger, closer. He kept pacing, flicking through tools and survival gear, trying to form a plan. Tali sat on the edge of the makeshift table, chewing something that looked suspiciously like his last protein bar, watching him with eyes too wide, too trusting. Navara was curled in a blanket fort of questionable design, polishing a plasma cutter she claimed was ceremonial. They'll be here soon, Ray said. We know, Tali replied. We're ready. You think you're ready? You've never dealt with scouts from the Corps. They don't ask. They extract. And if I'm in the way, then they will have to go through you, Navarra said, calm as sunrise. He opened his mouth, then closed it. You don't get it. I'm one guy. One. They come in squads. Drones. Surveillance. If they mark you as an asset, we are not assets. We are mates, Tali said pointedly. By Zarn doctrine, our pairing is bound by survival bond. To interfere is an act of aggression. They don't care about your doctrine. They only care what your biology is worth. You're anomalies, both of you. And the moment they see that imprint link, they'll catalog it, freeze it, replicate it, and sterilize anything inconvenient. Tali flinched. Navarra went still. Ray's voice lowered. They won't ask if you want to leave. They'll scan your vitals, find that heat lock in your system, and take you anyway. I've seen it happen. Whole research colonies scrubbed clean because someone decided a mutation had commercial value. We chose you, Navarra said. That is not mutation. That is meaning. He shook his head. That doesn't matter to them. Tali slipped down from the table and walked to him, softly. But it matters to you. He didn't answer. She reached for his hand, fingers cool and delicate. You were alone before us. Now you're not. That matters. He stared at their hands. He'd saved them out of reflex, out of decency. But somehow it had changed everything. They treated him like a foundation, like he was worth anchoring to. Not for what he could give, or take, but for who he was. And they weren't just strange, naive aliens anymore. They were his. Loud, confusing, invasive, and his. Ray nodded once, slowly. Then we don't wait for them. He started gathering gear. Caches, jammers, cloakers, old militia-grade toys he'd long buried beneath layers of regret. He loaded power cells, aligned decoys, prepped false thermal signatures. He taught the sisters how to scramble signals and disassemble detection probes. Navarra absorbed tactics with scary efficiency. Tali had a terrifying instinct for laying traps. By dawn, they'd moved out, left the bunker, deleted the records, falsified the terrain data. Every breadcrumb the Corps left in its arrogant approach, Ray twisted or erased. They were invisible by the time the dropship arrived. He watched from a ridge as sterile soldiers marched into the frost, armed with scan wands and emotionless drones. They searched. They circled. They found nothing. Navarra leaned against him, breath steaming in the cold. We are not just surviving now. We are choosing. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Later, deep inside a hidden cave system lit by bioluminescent fungi, they settled again. Different place. Same madness. Tali burned food again. Navarra nested with disturbing enthusiasm. They argued over who got to sleep closest to Ray. They declared a rotating cuddle schedule, much to his embarrassment and their satisfaction. But this time, it wasn't awkward. This time, it felt earned. Tali curled into his side one night, half asleep, and murmured, "You don't have to be our husband." He blinked. Okay? You already became it," she whispered, and was out. Navarra, on his other side, just smirked into her blanket. Acceptance stage reached. Ray stared at the rock ceiling, listening to their breathing, feeling the heat of alien skin beside him. Somehow, in this bizarre blizzard-stricken mess, he'd gone from a loner with a death wish to the reason two lives kept going. And for once, he didn't feel the cold.